should be panicked right now because the foundation on which the digital trust is built on cryptography. If you're not panicking, you should be panicking right now because everything that the trust is built in is actually going to evaporate. Dream11 is like a fantasy platform. I am super proud of basically my time over there. One of the reasons for that is it works at a scale that I had never seen before. Just imagine, like, you get 15 million requests per second. When we were asked, okay, we are introducing video KYC, it was something that we thought solved our problem. Then all of a sudden, we started basically observing like 80 to 90% of all the video KYCs were fake. Instead of it becoming a tool, it became a problem.
Every day, quantum computers edge closer, threatening to shatter the codes that protect our digital world. But one man refuses to blink, standing firm at the front lines of this digital war. From quantum threats to deepfake fraud, his mission is clear.
We have to be very conservative about like appropriate amount of training, appropriate amount of gamification at appropriate amount of intervals. We cannot bombard them every single day because if you do that, they actually become resistant to it.
Welcome to Between the Lines, powered by F5, where we discuss the art of innovation of technology with business. We delve deeper into issues that matter. We look at the chaos, the pitfalls, the challenges associated with integrating technology into better business outcomes. Over the last 8 months, I had the privilege of having CXO dialogues with leaders around the world. And today's episode, we are delighted to have a special guest. But before that, so Mohan, welcome back to Mumbai.
Thank you, Manoj, and really happy to be here. What an exciting and dynamic city Mumbai is. And I'm really happy to be able to come back and participate with you in this podcast series because we're going to be going a double click and talking to some of the CXOs that participated in the roundtables around the world. Okay. And this particular CXO, we met him in Bangalore. He was part of the roundtable there. And he was very, as you remember, very provocative, had a lot of very interesting insights that were a little bit different. And I'm glad he agreed to come here today to talk about his journey and how he sees the world of cybersecurity. Now, I just want to remind all of the viewers that we've actually captured a lot of the learnings in the Cyber Resilience Playbook. You can download it in the show notes. So please go ahead and do that because a lot of these podcast series will be based on that.
Yeah. And this particular guest, he has worked in some of India's most advanced digital companies who are setting great benchmarks. He has a varied experience across diverse industries as well. Really super delighted to welcome Hilal Ahmed Lone. Welcome, Hilal. Great to have you.
Welcome, Hilal.
Thank
Wonderful
you so
to have
much.
you.
So, Hilal, you have worked with some of the biggest technology companies in India. You have been, leading cybersecurity in Dream11.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the world's biggest online fantasy gaming platform. 250 million customers.
That's actually fascinating. Maybe we can talk about your experience there.
Dream11 is like a fantasy platform. I am super proud of basically my time over there. One of the reasons for that is it works at a scale that I had never seen before. Just imagine, like, you get 15 million requests per second. When people are doing registration, they are making their teams, they are making basically their selections. You get 15 million requests per second. Imagine the amount of data that we get on a daily basis that needs to be analyzed. Amount of analysis that we have to do to figure out if these requests are legitimate or not, if any fraud is happening or not, and you have to do all that in real time. The scale was humongous. It was a scale I had never seen before.
So Hilal, I think I wanted to go back to your thought on PQC, post-quantum cryptography. And you mentioned that the reason why you got into Liminal PQC was one of the reasons. Some folks feel that PQC is going to be the next Y2K moment. We have a lot of our customers here in F5 that are asking for it, and we're implementing that right now. So maybe you can talk about PQC, maybe explain to our listeners what PQC is and what it means to you and how you think it's going to affect the industry.
So to begin with, like what it means to me is basically something that's extremely close to my heart, right? So if you look back in way back for the Y2K moment, right? So it was kind of like everybody was saying, oh, something will happen. They were not sure what. It was very unpredictable.
Now they know what will happen.
They know exactly what will happen, but that's what surprises me, that people are not panicking. I don't want to panic, make people panic, but they should be panicked right now, because the foundation on which the digital trust is actually built is built on cryptography. And the traditional cryptography has some building blocks, like it has algorithms like RSA, ECC, it has hashing algorithms, it has key distribution algorithms, right? All of that is going to count for nothing, because we already have the technology available that can break those protocols, that can break those algorithms. So just last week, what happened was that there was an announcement by Chinese government, like China has built Shor's algorithm based that it's like 133-bit ECC algorithm was actually broken. ECC what is something that actually drives your WhatsApp communication. It does lots of communication over the internet. Crypto itself is based on ECC. RSA is your digital signatures and data security and network security and transport security. So these are going to count for nothing, because people have technology that can look into what exactly you are doing. Right now, you are actually doing your financial transactions on a web page, believing that it's safe, because it's backed by some of the most sound, tested, trusted algorithms that have not been broken so far, because RSA was built in the 1970s. Similarly, most of the algorithms were built so many, they have stood the test of the time, but no more, because we have the technology available that can break them. Now the challenge is that, okay, what exactly is PQC? What's the post-quantum cryptography? What the world looks like? So earlier, like we had this, one of the use cases was for the nefarious people was that people do data harvesting right now, which is like encrypted data harvesting, so that they can actually like decrypt it later on. Now, that's a massive problem, because if you believe that your credentials are going to be safe, your national secrets are going to be safe, your intelligence is going to be secure, is no longer going to be the case. So now, if you're not panicking, you should be panicking right now, because everything that the trust is built in is actually going to evaporate. Now, PQC in itself is basically post-quantum cryptography, meaning that we have quantum computers available now. What next? How do we actually have efficient key distribution that stands basically the post-quantum world? How do we have algorithms that can actually not be broken? So what are resistant to basically the PQC-based computers? Like what can we exactly do? So NIST actually has basically given a direction that by 2028, they should have the plans in place to migrate from basically like traditional crypto system to post-quantum cryptography.
You think that's too late, or you need to
It's
do it?
too late.
Too late.
Yeah.
Okay.
2030 is, they said, okay, when you should be actually transitioning. I think that's very, very late. I don't know who made that call at NIST. He should have spoken to me. Like the thing is that, like, because you have the systems already available, there is no telling who else has access to this technology. There could be nations that will be already harvesting all the data, because they sit on a data plan, ISP data plans and all those, which are on a massive scale. And all those data is actually, they're getting dumped right now and can be decrypted later on. That's not the only challenge. Challenge is that whatever technology that we actually trust right now is not, all the financial systems are not going to be safe anymore. All the transactions that we do are not going to be safe anymore. Our own identities are not going to be safe. So right now is the time when we think about basically transitioning to that. It's so important that the 5 last things that I talked about in the webcast that I did, 4 of them were on post-quantum. So you can imagine like how important I think it is. And it needs to be taken seriously. And the moment is right now. It's not right now. It was in the past.
Okay.
We should have just started basically way back. Because the problem is that like, there are so many things that we need to do to basically keep us safe, right? It's not just us who has to basically transition. It's our partners who we do business with. They have to transition as well. So how do we actually ensure that we transition and they transition as well?
So much of great work happening, yeah? and you've worked with diverse teams, and you've invested so much, and we see millions of such people working in organizations, securing enterprises. Yet we hear scams every single day, right? Recently, there was a deepfake voice scam tricking somebody of over $200 million. Why does this happen? Despite all of this good work that many people and such stringent policies in place.
I mean, I have a bittersweet relationship with deepfake, right? So when like back in 2018, 2019, fintechs started growing big, right? So initially you used to do physical KYC verifications and all that, or you upload a document, you are expected to basically do some background checks and all that, and you are done from the KYC point of view. So it was not scalable, cannot be scalable. First, if you're 100,000, 100,000, 200,000 makes sense, like you can potentially do it through different outsourcing methodologies and all those things. But once you cross like 500,000 and million customers, impossible to do KYC like physically, right? So one of the, I still remember, right? So when we were asked, okay, no, we are introducing video KYC. It was something that we thought solved our problem.
All problems.
Right, because we can person there,
Yeah,
right
you can
there.
see the person,
You can see the person, and he's not going to basically. He has his ID in his one hand, says that I'm this guy, and you are done. Basically, and it solved the problem. Believe me, it solved the problem for some time. 2-3 years, it solved. Then all of a sudden, we started basically observing like 80%, 80 to 90% of all the video KYCs were fake. They did not pass the quality check.
Wow.
Now, instead of it becoming a tool, it became a problem.
Right.
And it's all because of the deepfakes. So you could fake to be anybody. We created other cards for monkeys. We created like, all sorts of things, right? So the challenge was that like it was such a big issue to kind of like understand like, okay, how do we actually counter this thing, right? So I don't believe right now, today, there's an effective solution technically available with us that can counter deepfake. I don't believe that. There were some attempts, like say for example, Clearview was one of them. Some other tools were there. I don't know how effective they are. I don't believe they can be effective. For the simple reason that on a like individual level, I create a deepfake video of you. Doesn't matter. I can share it peer to peer. So how can it be controlled? It's very difficult to control. But on an enterprise level, when you have tools like video KYC and all those things, how do you prevent deepfake from actually spoiling things, right? I don't believe that we have that basically capacity yet to basically do that on a scale. Now, the other aspect of which is actually even darker, which is even more worrisome, is that there are all sorts of deepfakes in existence. Like, for example, my CEO receiving a deepfake voice message from someone saying that, okay, I'm in trouble and all that, please do something about it. And they convincingly believe that it's really that the person.
It's interesting because I was in one of the roundtables, one of the CISOs said that right now his biggest attack vector problem is the CEO's voice.
Exactly.
Right, so having the CEO's voice recorded somewhere can be used as a deepfake.
It can, and it is being used right now. So now the challenge is that, like, how do you kind of, what's the effective defense against it? I don't believe there's a tool that exists.
Wow.
Right now. And if somebody does that, he will be like a millionaire overnight. So now the challenge is that, like, you have so much problems, right? For me, I thought like, okay, what could be potentially enough for us? Is there going to be anything enough for us? So I quickly realized that there's not going to be enough basically defense against it. And then we realized that, okay, we should not treat as actually a different type of attack. We just classify this as a phishing attack. Right? So when we classify this as a phishing attack, so the normal controls that we deploy against phishing should be used against deepfake as well. So which means that, okay, the user awareness becomes very important.
Absolutely.
Having an aware workforce is important.
So, okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, please go ahead.
No, when you say user awareness, so do you train your employees to detect deepfakes?
Absolutely.
So how is that done?
So first and foremost, like, so what we tell people is that any ask from any leadership will always come through proper channels. is not going to be an emergency ever.
Or a WhatsApp call, email, or
Yeah,
something.
so if you receive like a message from the CEO, so you have urgent need for transfer funds, don't believe it at all. Don't even receive that at all. So it's the first step that we to tell people to do. No voice messages, no video message. We are not going to use that. Because first of all, we don't have the time. Second is it's like a very ineffective medium. The third is that it gives an impression that okay, I'm available to do like all video messaging all the day, which is not really cool. Right? So now when we tell people that okay, you have to basically be very vigilant against something like this, right? So we just follow the phishing playbook. Training, awareness, testing, simulation,
Right.
gaming. All of those things, which are actually effective against phishing, will be effective against deepfake. And when you build that kind of culture, you actually have a guarantee that
Yes.
we do not necessarily need tools to basically defend against it. And that's, I think, in my opinion, is the only solution right now.
Absolutely.
Maybe we'll get technical solutions later in the stage, but right now that's the most effective.
So
way of
people
dealing with this.
continue to be the weakest link.
Absolutely, 100%.
Not just your...
They're the first line of attack, they're the first line of defense, they're the first line of basically potential targets for anybody who wants to exploit an organization.
So if you go back to any of your previous organizations, or if you're the CIO of a leading bank, what would you do starting today over the next few weeks?
I think so. One of the things that we historically did wrong, not wrong necessarily, that's a strong word. I think what we did not do right was basically putting focus on a lot on the technical controls that we have, right? Or the process controls. We always thought about, okay, if we design our system like this, is going to work. If we design our process like this, is going to work. Or if we do certain things, it is like which are basically mostly technical related things, is going to work. But what we always ignored was basically like understanding what my business does. So if I had to go back, I would love to spend at least for 6 months of my tenure in that company understanding what our business is. Because only then I will be able to understand what are efficient controls, what is the appropriate amount of controls that I need to implement. Because I never thought about it like that. I always thought I should build very robust systems, resilient systems, but I never thought that are they going to be expensive for the organization? Are they going to be enough for the organization? Or am I going overboard also? I don't know. So did I understand the risk properly? I never thought about that.
As a consumer, you have created panic in me.
Okay.
What should I be doing?
With respect to PQC,
What should I be doing to reduce my risk and exposure, given that organizations I deal with may not be fully equipped to deal with the situation today?
so you have to ensure that basically you keep your assets or you keep yourself, your own identity as close to yourself as possible. You should be the one who should be in control. Don't pass on your control to someone else. Don't expect somebody to handle your security for you. So what you have got to do is basically like make yourself as aware as possible, learn about different types of attacks that are going to be executed against you as possible, ensure that you have enough know-how, enough information on what tooling is necessary for you. So sometimes what works, really works, is basically like you limiting your exposure. So do only essential things. Anything that's not essential, avoid doing that.
Simplify it a bit more, Hilal.
So-
If you were to give advice to your dad today, what would you give it to him?
Okay, so it's like this, right? So for example, I have the ability on my phone to basically like enable biometric authentication, 100% do that. I don't know why we don't do that. Second thing is that your application, the ones that you install, or the applications that are you going to use on a daily basis, need to be trusted applications. But how do I know which ones are to be trusted, right? So if I'm not a social media person, I don't like social media much, I don't have to install them, but they come as default on my device. Why should they sit there all the time, the lifetime of the product? Try to be a bit more conservative about, okay, what information you are consuming. Deepfakes, don't give in to them. So nothing comes easy. So if somebody promises that you are going to win $1 million, don't do that. It's not going to come. Maybe it does, I don't know. So, and some of these things, very simple things. It's all about hygiene, maintaining an hygiene to ensure that, okay, you don't fall victims to some of these basic things that we can actually avoid. keeping a clean environment is very, very important, both on your computer, laptop.
Update your computer all the
Updating,
time.
yeah. Keeping it
Updates,
clean
yeah.
is the best thing you can do. So honestly, like you should always know the purpose of using a device. The purpose of the device is if it's for entertainment, use it for entertainment. Don't expect it to provide you security. So if it is used for business, use it for business. Don't mix it. Because
Keep separate devices for business.
If possible, but most of the time it may not be possible. So in that case, you have to basically maintain profiles that can be segregated from one another. I think that's I think is an advice as a consumer that they can actually adopt.
Yeah. You also briefly worked with Razorpay, one of India's
Not briefly. I was there for almost like 3 years.
and it is one of India's largest payment platforms, wallets. How was that experience? How was it different from the other experiences that you?
Yeah, so Dream11, so as an organization, or the gaming and fantasy gaming industry as an organization, more than anybody, it's not a regulated one, right? So the security decisions or the compliance decisions are based on basically voluntarily or self-regulation, right? So you want to have the necessary certification that's necessary for your payments. You want to have certification that's necessary for your systems, and you want to have certification that's necessary for, and that determines what kind of security you will have. So the focus is a lot on basically making sure that we eliminate business risks, technical risks, and all of that, right? It's because it was not regulated, so there was no external influence on how the security would look like inside, right? So that was Dream11. So we had a lot of room for being creative, and we were very creative. So then Razorpay totally 360-degree like opposite experience.
It's fascinating that you said that you're very creative in Dream11, then you come to Razorpay, which is very regulated, right?
Yes.
So how do you maintain that creativity?
So I see Razorpay, or my experience at Razorpay, did not eliminate creativity. It was creativity in a different sense.
I see. Within
the regulatory asks and making sure that everything is done as per the guidelines of different regulatory agencies like RBI, NPCI.
Which is important, which is critical.
It's extremely important. It's extremely important. So the creativity of part of it, let's go back to the original thing. So how did it basically differ from Dream11?
Yeah.
So now we come to Razorpay. It's a major fintech organization in India, very innovative, super proud. So, and it was a revelation for me, because I had not worked with regulated industries before. So every Friday, we get a circular from RBI. Bunch of things they have listed. These are things we are happening. These are things that you need to do. These are the things you don't need to do. This is the coverage for this guy. This is the coverage for that guy. Now, the challenge was how do we interpret that? This was the base. One of the first challenge that I had how do I interpret these things? How do I understand this? So it took quite a while for me to basically understand all of those requirements from regulators. Because it's not straightforward. So because one of the things that they do is basically they keep the scope extremely broad. It's not prescriptive at all. So it's open for interpretation.
Okay.
So they'll say, okay, you are expected not to deal with these guys. How is not mentioned how you do that. So how is up to you, right? So you can potentially deploy technical controls, or you can do process controls, or whatever is up to you, you do it, right? Now, we had a problem of understanding what is acceptable for the regulators.
So did you have to work with your legal team?
Yes, all the time. We had that's a full-time position, right? So we had a problem of actually understanding what the regulator will be
Asking.
okay with if we deploy something or implement something. Because what if we invested in something, turns out the regulators do not necessarily feel that's actually a good thing to do. Say, for example, we did a deployment of automated GRC tools that did system level probes and all that to basically give you the maturity assessments or to tell you what your posture is in general. So all we thought was that we had to give access to the regulators and they will understand what we do. They came, they saw, rejected it the first attempt. For them, that does not work because they say, okay, this is not, the seeing is believing. I will go after each system and understand what it is. and then probably like I will be okay with whatever you're doing. Now I'll tell you one very fascinating incident, which was out of this world, right? So the RBI guys, they have this auditing arm, which does technical assessments, of technical audits of different organizations, which are regulated. So we were one of them, and unfortunately, we were one of the first organization to be audited by RBI. So they were doing a lot of learning exercise from us also, right? So for them, they said, okay, one of the requirements is to understand where your data center is. And we were a cloud native organization. We had zero on-premise deployment. So it was a challenging thing to tell them that we don't have a data center in a traditional sense. Now, how do I show them my data center? There's a AWS cloud or GCP cloud or whatever it is. It's in cloud.
Yeah.
They said, we don't care. Like,
You got to bring
at
it
some
back.
point we will have a server somewhere. I said, that's logical. Obviously, it is residing on some server, and that server is also on some hypervisor somewhere.
Yeah.
So where it is? I said, it's a very unique thing to ask.
So what, did you have to go to AWS and say, hey, you need to...
Very long exercise. So we had to tell AWS,
Give us a local instance somewhere.
there is, our servers are somewhere in your Mumbai data center.
And show RBI that
Show
that's...
RBI where it is. Now the challenge is that they also had not received a request like that before.
Wow.
So now they're also like confused what to do about it. Right?
Interesting.
So now what happened was that ultimately like we worked out like a solution. We said, okay, you know what? Somebody from the RBI will come along with our person to the data center. You just show it to them, which rack it is, where it is. Now they went to the data center, and now they are not expected to go in exactly into the physical data center. They will be shown from the glass door,
Right.
like through the console that, okay, that's the... Now, for me, it's like an exercise that is like, does not make a lot of sense because like, how do you know that exactly is my rack?
Right.
Because there's no label mentioned that, okay, this is Razorpay rack, right? So now the challenge, but from their point of view, I believe they felt it was important to evaluate some of the controls that they felt was necessary. One of the things was they actually wanted to make sure was that, okay, if they have enough disaster recovery, the resilience that you are talking about is about basically ensuring that, okay, if there's a natural disaster or something like that, will these guys be able to sustain it?
Understand. So from their point of view, they felt it was...
From their point of view, it was important to understand that. And for them, physical validation was necessary. For us, physical validation means nothing. I don't care where my server is. It should be accessible. I should be able to ping it. That's all I need.
Yeah.
So it's not like I had to touch and feel and like the server, and then I come to know about it. So, but imagine like going from Dream11, no such requirement, going to Razorpay, very weird requirements. That determined like how we see security, how we see compliance, totally opposite.
Yep.
So there is influence basically on the decisions that we make in a security organization that comes from the regulators, and it's very fascinating.
So you mentioned working with the auditors, right? So in that company, you had multiple arms, which probably had different frameworks and regulations. So how do you deal with the auditors to audit everything? Or was it an issue or not an issue?
So earlier I was talking about basically building those master frameworks, right? So one of the things that we did...
Because don't they apply a master framework sometimes when they come?
They do, and they are very comprehensive, and
Right,
they are very, very good at it.
Yes, yeah.
But the problem was that like they actually have this notion that everything is going to be picture perfect.
Yes.
So which is not always the case.
not always the case.
So they will ask us, so get us this data point, or get us this data or this document from somewhere, and we say, what are you talking about? Right? Then they have to explain it to us what that meant. So whatever they
Because
brought
they're
with
looking
them,
at it from a very academic exercise.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So they came with this thought that, okay, since they're prepared, they might have already all these things. They had the preconceived notion that everything is working the way it is supposed to be. And they will have everything in place. But an organization which is a unicorn or is still growing, so obviously a lot of things are going to be like in the process of getting developed, or we may not have that, that's not required for us,
correct.
or it's not even applicable to us. But they will have all of those documents vetted by us. So they will actually make us confirm whether that's applicable to us or not.
Right.
And that used to take a lot of time. So what we did was we were smart enough to basically build that we called something called MCF, Master Compliance Framework. So the Master Compliance Framework mapped all the regulatory and compliance requirements, and then we mapped it to our businesses.
Wow.
And we did that exercise consciously knowing that this is going to be needed. And when the auditors, when we work with auditors, we give them the MCF saying this is what we do. Now you do the mapping. So that way we actually like.
So you go ahead of them to make
We
sure.
went ahead of
because
them.
if they come, you'll have to follow what they ask.
Exactly,
you to
and they will waste. It's a lot of time wastage exercise and all that. Not that it doesn't matter; it matters.
It matters,
But
absolutely.
the way we go around it is not always going to be something that is compatible with everybody.
Absolutely.
So that's why I think we were smart enough to basically be proactive about it, and we executed that preemptively, and asked them to basically follow through that, and they did that, right? And it kind of like eased the load on my team to basically be there all the time.
Correct.
So, and we had a fair amount of success with that. And that's one tool that actually works everywhere. That's one thing that I had taken from one place to another to another. Yeah.
You know, being in the custody industry, I'm sure you're looking at smart contracts. And so from the point of view of smart contracts, smart contracts are something that run autonomously, right? Based on certain triggers. So how would you secure smart contracts, because they're running without you knowing, right? I mean, are there certain security aspects you need to look at or controls you need to look at when it comes to smart contracts?
Well, absolutely, right? So some of the things that are important when you're executing a smart contract or you in designing a smart contract. So it's supposed to be immutable, meaning that the moment you actually triggered it, it's not supposed to be basically manipulated by anyone.
Right.
Because of the distributed nature of the smart contracts. So you don't have just one copy. You have hundreds of those copies distributed across the basically whatever blockchain links that you're actually using. It can be Chainlink, it can be whatever, right? So whatever copy that I have should be the same across all the nodes, which means that immutability is extremely important. So those checks and balances that are in place to make sure that it remains immutable is important. So which again comes back to the security of the keys, for example. The cryptography key that I use to basically designate or design the smart contract is very important. The custody of the key is important. We need to ensure that, that has enough strength to not get basically breached, right? It should not be duplicatable as well. And the smart contracts, because they have a kind of like, they're autonomous, as you mentioned. So meaning that anybody can execute it based on if the triggers are met.
Yeah.
So keeping that aspect is very, very important, because, for example, if a smart contract needs like one signature, not enough. So that's why we had the multi-signature smart contracts. Like so more than one person is required to execute a smart contract.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what that does is basically, like, if I am compromised, I can execute a malicious smart contract, but the other person will not be able to execute it because signature does not match.
Right.
Similarly, like one of the strangest things that you will see in the smart contract world is that there are malicious smart contracts floating around that compromise your identity, that compromise all the things. So you have to be smart enough to identify which ones are those. Again, nothing comes for cheap, nothing comes for free. So don't believe into the smart contract that tell you that you are going to be immensely rich.
Right.
So don't give into that. And also be resistant towards basically like attacks like social engineering, which will ask you for your keys, your ledgers, and all those things, because that's the only way they can get possession of the key. And if you are resistant to that, it means that your smart contracts will always be sacred. They're not going to be manipulated.
Oh, excellent.
Hilal, we worked together to create the playbook
Yeah.
for cyber resiliency. And one of the big things we focused on, one of the critical steps was about building a security culture. Now, with all the technology available, you said it all comes down to people.
Yes.
What would be a few critical elements in building the security culture that are extremely relevant given the context of this deep fake AI-driven environment that we are all faced with today?
See, I do believe that it's important for people to experience rather than read. So how do they experience those things, right? So they can experience through simulations, for example. Put them in a situation where they had to make a tough call, right? Understand how they go about it. How do they identify? Because sometimes, like even when I get some of those basically phishing emails, I actually want to read that, what exactly this is. And they are structured so well. The people have become really, really good at crafting those data. And now the spear phishing and the targeted phishing is so much more relevant. I think the most of the phishing activity gets already filtered through different security controls, but you still get those targeted phishing messages. So how do we identify, how does the workforce identify that? They have to be put in that situation. Do surprise simulations, do surprise gaming exercises with them. Understand if they're basically equipped to basically identify if it is a genuine or legitimate email or is a malicious email or a malicious stamp. So I think building that culture is very, very important, and having the support is very, very important. Necessary tooling is important. On one hand, we have to always understand that out of 100 attempts, maybe one is actually successful, or 1,000 attempts, one is successful. What is my next step? So I should be able to basically figure out if somebody is even basically compromised, how do I make sure that the impact is not as high? That's where the segregation of duties becomes important. That's why the least privilege becomes important. And that's where our tooling becomes important. We actually get to test our tooling. Do we actually make sure that, okay, even if somebody is compromised, it does not have a basically major impact? So I think those are some of the things when you build a culture in your organization where people actually experience those things. I believe that doing is more important rather than reading about it. So when they do those exercises by themselves, you actually put them in an environment which is close to the real world scenario they actually get into. And you have to repeat that often enough that it becomes a second nature for them to question everything that comes to them. So if they are not questioning basically an unidentified email or any unidentified wallet address for that matter, they should be, right? So, and that's where we need to be to basically give that, make sure that we burn that message into the culture to understand that, okay, we have to question everything. Even the legitimate ones also is possible for us to basically question it.
As a business leader, you say, is Hilal pushing it too much? Are we doing too much? Is this much really needed? How do you know how much is needed? Because I listen to you and say, oh, I need to be spending so much more time. Maybe it is not practical. What would you tell? How do you decide the level of emphasis we need to put on this building a culture of security?
Absolutely. I do believe that too much of something can eventually turn bitter. So that's where we have to, and it can also bring in basically this fatigue element also. If you do it too many times, people will become immune to it. They will actually feel, oh, this is another simulation. So it doesn't work that way. So we have to be very conservative about appropriate amount of training, appropriate amount of gamification at appropriate amount of intervals. So we cannot bombard them every single day, because if you do that, they actually become resistant towards that. They actually feel that, oh, this is not important, is another thing that we are doing. So I think you are absolutely right. We should not be overdoing it. So we should always be conservative about it. That's the only the message is going to go through. Otherwise, it's going to be another message. Nobody's going to listen.
So that's very fascinating. So you talked about the massive transactions, massive number of users. So when it came to that type of infrastructure and real-time environment, were there trade-offs you had to make in terms of security? Because there was definitely a focus on the user experience, right? User experience versus security, I find it's always a trade-off that a lot of people seem to work on.
So in any security function, no matter which organization that we are working at, and doesn't matter, right? So there are always improvements that need to be made. And at Dream11, it's no different. So we had to make improvements all the time. But what was not basically allowed was to basically become careless about security. Ultimately, what happened, because it was already an industry that was scrutinized, both in public as well as in policymakers. So you cannot take a chance. And the leadership guidance, from Harjan, who was the founder of and Amit Sharma, who was the CTO of Dream11, one of the smartest guys I have worked for. So I can tell you straight away, right? So they were people who would not basically buy into mediocrity. So they need people to be sharp. They need people to be on their best behavior when it comes to basically securing the assets that Dream11 has. And in the trust that the millions of users that they had in Dream11 you cannot take chances. So despite the scale, in spite of all the massive amounts of data that used to come in, everything had to be inch perfect, right? So imagine doing money laundering checks, anti-money laundering checks on each transaction, making sure that you do anti-fraud checks on each transaction, ensuring that the KYC checks that has been done on the customers who are already verified and repeatedly cannot be taken for granted. So despite all of the scale that we operated at, all the controls that were necessary for us to basically manage the security of the organization was never, ever overlooked. And that's one of the reasons I believe that Dream11 is successful, because they have not taken shortcuts. And I should definitely commend the leadership guidance on that, because they are the people who believe that you do not do things halfway through.
Wonderful.
You have to follow through on everything that you do. And to your question that, okay, Mohan, or were there any trade-offs? I don't think there were trade-offs that we know of, but absolutely innovation, creativity was always involved to identify new ways of doing things in security. And we were always improving on the things that we already had and continue to do so while at Dream11.
So, yeah, go ahead.
No, so going into a regulated environment, I'm sure a lot of folks in your team were more about compliance. Like, hey, let's make sure we pass the compliance first, right? How did you get them thinking a little bit more critically, a little bit more, hey, you know what? It's not only compliance, but we can also, be creative, right? I mean, was that something that you felt?
So
I'm sure a lot of people in regulated industries are, they're very compliance focused.
Compliance heavy, yeah. So it's not an unexpected observation, right? So people tend to basically feel that, okay, like when you are regulated, most of the time you will be like against the clock to basically close some of the audits.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because your license depends on it. If you don't have the certification, you will not pass the audit. You don't have business anymore. So audit becomes like a high priority thing. Like passing the certificates becomes a very high priority thing. But at the same time, it's obviously something that as a seasoned professional or as a seasoned security person, you will understand that whatever certifications we do, whatever regulations we have to adhere to, is not necessarily different from what business you are supposed to be doing. Because imagine it like this, right? So for me, if regulators ask me, okay, you need to have data security, what's wrong with that? It is something that I have to do anyway.
Yeah.
And I should be good at doing that. So if they're prodding me on, that's a good thing. And if they're eliminating any kind of bias from my decision making, that's a good thing, because they have tried and tested this before they implemented that. And the job of a security professional or somebody who's at a decision making process is important that the team understands that the regulations, the compliance, all the audit requirements are there to help your business grow, is not there to stop your business. So we did not believe at any point that just by being the check mark kind of audits is not what we are aiming for at all. So every requirement in that particular list that actually we received had some background to it. So if somebody wants us to have change management, why? Is to basically eliminate any human mistakes. So we overlook certain things. Should not happen. In the release management, for example, we ship out products that are going to be having bugs, vulnerabilities. Why? So if an audit or if a regulation asks me to basically, you need to have these things, I think it's the best thing that can happen to us. And the best thing because you not only get basically the buy-in, or you don't get the consent just from basically from a regulatory point of view, but your management, your CXO leadership, they also understand that this is very, very important. So you get that support as well. So in a way, I feel that all of those requirements are actually most welcome, because they allow us to become more mature, systematic, and structured.
Right.
So from now Razorpay, you have moved on to something as a real cutting edge of work possibly you've ever done in your entire life. So what is it at Liminal, and what attracted you to make this kind of transition?
So interesting, right? So like
Maybe you
Mohan
can,
was telling me earlier.
yeah,
that,
maybe you can talk about what exactly does.
Yeah,
the middle
I'll
ground.
get
Yeah.
to I will get to that. Like, so one of the things that I think there's nobody who has not heard about cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. Uh, for all the good and bad reasons, it's always in the good news as well as the bad news. So more or less everybody has heard of it. This coin, that coin, and all that. Everybody heard, but see, that's just a part of basically the crypto industry. It's not the entire crypto industry. So the crypto industry has a massive amount of things that go behind the scenes. You have blockchains, you have basically your smart contracts, you have an entire universe of Web3 applications that people are not necessarily aware of. So while our focus is always on the cryptocurrency things, with the money, people either gain it or lose it, doesn't matter. But people often do not have the necessary information about the other side of basically crypto, which I believe is actually the real deal. Because crypto coins are basically something that is just dependent on the policy. If a policy changes in a country or whoever comes with a different concept,
Yeah.
the crypto coins are something that people actually use, right? So, and it's dependent on that. But one of the most tangible benefits of crypto industry is basically like all the things that we see, innovations that we do, like in logistics, healthcare, commerce, in fact, like in manufacturing. So that's a massive amount of things that we do that people do not know about. Identity, for example. So we have been struggling like 3 decades for managing identity. Even today, I don't believe there is any person who says that he knows identity very well. There's always confusion about how do I secure my identity? You see
Absolutely.
account takeovers all the time. You see account breaches all the time. You see like all sorts of problems with accounts, right? So all the identities that we use, centralized or federated, whatever it is, people struggle with managing those.
But I think we were discussing earlier. I mean, when you talk about crypto, I think a critical thing is KYC, right?
Yeah.
And KYC is not naturally built into the crypto frameworks, actually. So how does that? That's kind of an added thing, more regulated.
It is, right? So basically, if you look at the DeFi application, which is basically the distributed finance
Yes.
applications, right? So they have kind of like adopted KYC as a norm. So, and it's actually important as well because you're ultimately dealing with people's money. So you cannot be lax about the controls that are going to be necessary for that. And KYC is one of the most important tools.
Absolutely.
Right. So it's necessary to prevent it from becoming a tool for malicious users, like who can have some nefarious purpose. Like say it could be terrorist funding, it could be money laundering, it could be some nation state actors for that matter. So they can misuse these channels, which are supposed to be like good for the entire industry. That can be misused. So the KYC becomes like an important control to basically prevent that from happening.
So you think you have more creative license now as compared to you had before?
Not necessarily true because we have to see in its context. So in Razorpay or in Dream11, right? So there were different types of creativity, innovation that we had to basically use, right? So at the same time, like so in this particular industry, which is basically crypto industry, it uses a longer rope to basically be creative.
Right. So maybe can you talk about this new role, what the company does, and why were you so attracted to this?
I think that's great. So it's a natural progression for me, right? So if you look at last 4 companies that I worked at, travel, fantasy gaming, then not fantasy, then basically fintech,
Fintech,
and
yes.
now we are in crypto, right? So each of them are different industries.
Absolutely.
So like I said before, also when we were having a conversation, I said I'd like to challenge myself, because one thing I truly believe is that no matter how much you read, no matter how much you listen, right, experience, like you don't become a subject matter expert just by listening or just by hearing, just by reading, right? You have to do things. So for me, it's not just important to be knowledgeable about it. It's also basically experience as a builder. Like when you make mistakes, like you actually experience the pain of basically what goes into basically making sure that we build a perfect product. So before joining Liminal, right? So I was doing research, on my own, basically about what is going to basically like challenge or what is going to change the industry in the next 5 years. Two things came up which were incredibly like important to me. One was basically the blockchain-based financial business in the next 5 years, which is going to replace the traditional one, which I already positive about. The second was basically the post-quantum cryptography. That's going to change how systems get built, how protocols get built, how transactions are done. So I think these two topics were extremely close to my heart. And now, when I was thinking about, okay, what do we do exactly in blockchain? How can we actually solve these problems? One of the challenges was that there were not enough organizations that used to be at the bleeding edge of it. That was different from something else, like the exchange, like Binance and CoinDCX and all those people, right? They do great work, right? So, but for them, it still means actually transacting cryptocurrency and all that. So we want to go behind the scenes, what happens. And that's why the liminal custody is actually something that does basically the digital wallets. Think of it as like a wallet that stores all your cryptocurrency. It's as simple as that. Now, there are different types of wallets. You have a hot wallet, you have a warm wallet, and then you have a cold wallet. So the hot wallet is where you keep some of your currency as an exchange. Exchange is like CoinDCX, Coinbase, Binance is an exchange. So they keep money, which is in their hot wallets, which can be transferred immediately. So if I'm a customer at Coinbase, I should be able to transfer that money quickly. So that's when the hot wallets are actually used. The warm wallets are basically which refill the hot wallets. So if the hot wallets are empty, now you have to get money from somewhere to basically do more transactions.
Okay, so the warm wallets are connected to
hot wallets.
To hot wallets.
But both of them
are they connected to the back end to banking?
Yes. Now they're connected.
Yeah.
Right? So now comes the third part, which is the cold wallet. Cold wallet holds your reserves, which you do not touch. And most of the cold wallets are offline.
Correct.
Because the amount of currency, amount of assets that are in the wallets, massive. Right? So you don't want it to be online all the time. And that's what the business we are in.
Fascinating.
We manage the cold wallets.
You know, you talked about the hot wallet, warm wallet, cold wallet, and you said the cold wallet was offline. So can you talk about how do you manage that whole process? I mean, I'm sure it's not only having connectivity, APIs, and keys, etc., but there's probably a process or physical security aspect to it. Maybe can you talk about it? Because I think it's very interesting for you probably when you started in this role, right?
Absolutely. And it was surprising to me, to be honest, right? So the first thing that I was told to do was to research the physical security aspect of custody business. And believe it, I could not believe how complicated it was. It's not straightforward that you install a bunch of cameras, biometric controls. It's not really that much. So you have to go to all the length, right? So you have to have all the possible ways to defend against it. Believe it or not, we use reinforced doors, like how you have in a wallet.
Wow.
Like in a bank vault, not the individual ones, but the vaults. You have the reinforced doors. The custody rooms have the reinforced doors. And it's my job to figure out what's the reinforcement that's necessary. I had never done that before. So now imagine it, like like say for example, we have policies around who can enter the room, at what time they can, how long they can stay there, who maintains basically the custody of the ledger keys, which are the hardware keys necessary to basically sign a transaction. So who maintains that? Who maintains the security? Lot goes into it.
Wow.
Massive amount of investment goes into it. We have the best possible video surveillance. We have the best possible biometrics. In fact, you will not believe this, but we have the tripwires also. So it's amazing and it's required as well, because the amount of money or amount of assets that are in the cold wallet is tremendous. So to be able to defend against basically any possible attack vector, it's important that not only do we have technical controls, the process controls, the physical controls are extremely, extremely important, because the security of the entire system depends own a single key or the keys that are different with different people. That key is lost, you're lost. That's why you actually see in the news, right? So you see that, okay, somebody has locked away like
The
more than
key.
2 billion in bitcoins, cannot figure out the password for his ledger key. Somebody has like multiple
So
assets.
what is the
locked.
answer to that?
There's no answer. Like, so that's the fun of it, right? So because you need to be able to basically preserve that key, and preservation does not just mean that you lose it. It also means that you're able to recover it. So that's the resilience part of it, right? So it's basically important for us to have controls on multiple levels.
Absolutely.
And that makes it fascinating. So, and my job actually becomes a lot more interesting because you can now claim to be the hacker in the Matrix movies.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Right? So you become like you can touch and feel the security rather than just talking, oh, least privilege is great.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Wow.
failing securely is great. Right? So, but all those things are just concepts, like they are like on a non-tangible level. So this is tangible. This is security that you can touch and feel. And this is something that I
So
found
it's a combination
like
of
extremely
both.
important.
It's a combination of both, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
So my point is that like this is something that I had never done before. Now it feels very real.
Yes. Yes.
It feels real, and you actually get to understand the amount of accountability you need to have.
Excellent. Hilal, we have had a fascinating conversation. What we're going to do is we're going to do some rapid fire.
Absolutely.
Yeah? Let's get a few questions and get some quick answers.
Sure.
If you're not a CISO, what would your career be?
I was a biology student. So
Wow.
I loved genetics. And I would have been a researcher in genetics, or I would have been teaching at a university.
Wow.
Do you still find that interesting, that topic?
100%. I still remember all the experiments I did, all the retrovites I cleaned, all the like reverse transcription things that I did, all the protein synthesis that I did. So I can't forget that.
Yeah. So biology's loss is a gain for crypto and the digital world. So welcome to this world. Thank you. Second one metric every CISO should obsess over.
I think it's visibility.
Visibility.
Yeah. So you should always be sure about your assets that you have to protect, because you cannot protect that you cannot see or you are not aware of. So visibility is the number one metric. So you have to have an appropriate updated inventory of all the critical assets that you have. Without that, all your security controls are going to fail.
If you had to eliminate one cybersecurity buzzword.
Okay, if I had to eliminate, it will be AI-powered security.
So AI is not for security. Huh?
No, it is for security, but it's too much.
Every vendor is saying that.
Yeah, everybody's saying that. So I'm become like very mad about it. Somebody mentions it, I got, yeah.
Okay.
I love that.
Okay, this one. When building a team, passion, process, or pedigree? What would come
All three,
first?
all three.
It cannot be all three.
All three. I don't think they're actually mutually exclusive. You have passion that comes out of the pedigree that you have. And process important, basically, like despite all the talent in the world, you still need some guidelines, you still need some guardrails. So all three are like
So
equally important.
in cybersecurity, in the team, a CISO's team, you need a blend of all three. It cannot be, if it's too much passion, then you are in trouble. If it's too much pedigree.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What's a security habit you wish every employee had?
Security habit, questioning everything, being curious. I think that's very important.
Fabulous, Hilal. I think we've had a fabulous conversation. Hilal, if you had to go back with all this experience and if you were to do some of these jobs again, what would you do differently?
I think I would focus a lot more on business. What is the nature of my business and what is potentially going to be detrimental for my organization to do business. Because normally when we start with best practices, and best practices are just a bunch of things that we have to do anyway. And we feel that that's actually enough for the organization. It does not turn out to be the correct thing to do. So if I had to go back, I would focus a lot more on understanding basically the business.
So that means having security as an enabler.
Exactly.
Excellent. Fabulous. Mohan?
Wonderful. No, wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Very, very good conversation. Loved it.
Yeah,
Thanks
I can
for coming.
speak whole day. So, so
Yeah. Thank you, Hilal, for making
it
the
was a
trip from
pleasure.
Bangalore.
It was a pleasure being here, and it's a fantastic conversation that I had with you. You're very easy to talk to, and allowing me to basically speak my mind is highly appreciated.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.